One of my favorite projects that I worked on that I really like to brag about was in the Virgin Islands. In October 2018, I went to go work on a roofing repair project as just a data manager for that project. There was a little bit of GIS involved. The way the company I worked for got paid was for the square footage of each roof that we repaired. The way they were calculating that square footage was they would look at a building footprint, get the square footage of that building footprint, use some factor, 10 or 15%, to estimate what the dimensions of the roof is. Well, roofs aren't flat, and sometimes they're not just a simple peaked roof. Sometimes they have all sorts of crevices in them. But at some point, I said to the project manager, y'all may want to consider using drones to get images of these roofs so you can get measurements, because that technology exists. Where you fly a drone, it takes photos or video and then creates a 3D model of a structure. There wasn't a lot of interest in that. About 6 months later, and about 2 months from project closeout, we get a frantic call from the project manager's assistant. The client is requiring that we have precise roof measurements, pitches, eaves, gables, all of that stuff. Can y'all use drones to do that? Just like with GIS? Yeah, yes, of course we can do that. So instead of having a nice leisurely time frame to go out to a house, fly a drone over it, no. We had 6 weeks to do about 840 roofs. I had never done anything like that. I'm FAA licensed drone pilot because it ties into the GIS world. And so as kind of the unofficial deputy chief drone operator for the company I work for, I was able to get in touch with 4 fellow employees at this engineering firm. We were scattered across the country, had never met, didn't even know each other, but I knew they had drone licenses, and was able to get them to the Virgin Islands in about a week. And they brought their company-owned drones and they were able to start flying. Where does GIS come into this? Well, we knew where each of the houses were that we needed to fly, but we couldn't just go out in the day instead of driving around randomly across the island. So I had to use GIS, plot the locations of the houses, and then I just automated creating a grid map so that we could create daily taskers for each pilot. These are the houses you're going to go to. They could go out, they could spend 8 hours, maybe fly 8 or 10 roofs, and then they'd come back with all of the data, the raw photos that they captured, offload them from the drone. We sent them back to the mainland where we had GIS analysts running it through a subscription-based analysis program, which then spat out the exact location, or excuse me, the exact dimensions of a roof. And then that was how the company was able to bill a client for $60 million instead of possibly a lot less, because they didn't have exact roof measurements. On top of that, if you take a drone and you go out to a location, you don't just turn on the drone, it goes up. You have to plan for that. Well, we had to create flight plans for 840 houses. One way to do that is you go out, you pull out your iPad or whatever you're using to control the drone, you draw the area, and you tell the drone, I need you to fly this area at this altitude. That would mean that it would have taken you maybe a half hour, 45 minutes per house to do that. We did not have that kind of time. Back to GIS. I automated the process where it spat out it's called a polygon, just about a 1 acre area over each house. I had to automate converting that to a different file format, and then we had to automate uploading that to the software that was being used to fly the drone, so that when one of our pilots got to a location, all they had to do was pull out their drone, turn it on, let it do its thing, literally push the play button. The drone took off, flew the house, came back, move on to the next house. So you could do 10, 15, 20 minutes per house. You basically double the amount of houses you're able to fly in a single day. I like that story because it just is one of those things that brings GIS together, that it's not just enough to know where things are. Sometimes you have to be able to do things quickly, and you have to be able to integrate different technology that some people don't always think belongs together in order to do something that people may not have thought that they needed, but man, it turns out that they needed it, but they knew who to call. And that was the best thing. Good customer service. You get callbacks for more work, and sometimes it really makes a difference, especially when you deliver a good product and leave your customer satisfied.
Okay, now I think you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'm a little unclear on what actually here.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got the flight plans. You go there, your drone is going to fly like back and forth or whatever kind of thing
Yep.
you set up for an acre. Now, this building isn't that big.
Correct.
So when you get that data back to home base or whatever, how are you picking out just the building?
That's very good. So an acre may be a bit large. It just depends on the size of the house. And if you have to understand a little bit about, I think it's called photogrammetry, but when a drone collects data, if you're just doing still photos, it is moving across the ground, typically looking straight down, getting what's called a nadir image. It's perpendicular above the ground. It takes a photo as it's moving, takes a photo, takes a photo. So you may end up, for one of these houses, you may have 100 photos. It's not a lot of photos, but the drone mapping software that you upload those photos to, it stitches the photos together and it creates that aerial image. On the drone processing software, the people we had in the U.S., they were the ones that drew a box around the house and told the software, this is the structure that we need to get the dimensions for, and then you'd run it through that process. I feel like there was more to that, but not necessarily. But you could also mess that up pretty easily. If you flew too low, flew too high, then it makes it more difficult for the drone to be able to stitch those. So you have to understand how to do exactly what's needed, so you don't end up wasting your time and having to redo some of your work, especially when it's a time-sensitive matter like that project was.